Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody!
The energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, reppin' both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire, misunderstood. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline greens, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. Rob hype on the mic, CP's the fire spark. Together they ignite, voices like the park. Fans dripped in jerseys, legacy bold. The Metropolitan story forever told. Turnstile spinning, the crowd floods the gates. This is family, no time for debates. Crack of the Batman, the roar never fades. Queens in the blood, it's how champions are made. Cheer 'em all loud, let the anthem flow. Mets fans unite at the pregame show. From city stand lights to the skyline gleams, it's the heartbeat of Queens, the craziest dreams. 7-line swagger, vibes electric and wild. Mets legacy golden since I was a child. Orange crushed skies, let the battle ignite. Ride for the home team till the last fight.
What's up, Mets fans? Welcome back to the Amazing Mets Pregame Show right here on the channels. Today, Mets fans, it is Tong time for the New York Mets as the Mets bring up another phenom prospect pitcher in Jonah Tong. Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I cannot wait for this one. And anything that the Mets did last night, I have completely forgot about. Not really. But you know what? I would like to forget about it if Jonah Tong goes out there and absolutely shoves tonight. I mean, I'm so excited for this. Hopefully it's not a letdown. I don't think that it's going to be with what Nolan McLean is doing right now and how talented Jonah Tong is, considered to be a little bit more talented at the minor league level than Nolan McLean. We can only assume that we're in for a treat. So what a night to be a Mets fan. I understand that yesterday was a brutal loss. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit, but we're on to today. Look forward, not behind. We've got a division to still catch up on.
Yeah, after the beatdown the Mets put on the Phillies, it was kind of disappointing what they did yesterday. I mean, they played a terrible game. Errors, just not playing well at all. And it was frustrating because you hope that momentum took them into this series. And with this 4-game series, I talked about it yesterday on the pregame show that a split would suck. And now to win a series, you gotta win 3 in a row. And can the Mets do that? Sure. I mean, they'll have, you're facing the Marlins here, who is not. They don't have their best hitter yet. They scored 7 runs yesterday. A couple of them were unearned. The Mets defense kind of put that, to the bank and say, hey, Marlins, here's the game. I think the Mets had a good chance of winning this game if they didn't make those bonehead errors and mental mistakes. How many more times you're going to throw it home when you didn't have a play is a problem nonetheless. It's just, knowing what you got to do with the ball in certain spots. But unfortunately, the Mets did lose. And it's unfortunate because of what we did to the Phillies. The Phillies destroyed the Braves yesterday, and now they got a 5-game lead back in the division. And, I say it like this, Chris. If the Mets just got to get to the Philadelphia series within striking distance, and we'll obviously, talk about that because the Mets do have the Phillies number, even though it is in Philly for the remainder 4 games of that season series. I think the Mets will be ready for that series. But what are your thoughts yesterday when it came to just the lack of mental mistakes, the many errors, and just looking like one of the worst games they played in a while?
I mean, that was the thing amid this whole losing streak that I saw from the Mets was poor fundamentals from the defensive side. They are a talented defensive team if they really want to be. We saw them make minimal to no mistakes defensively in that Phillies series. They played clean baseball, which helped them sweep that series. Now, the offense absolutely came to life also in that series, which helped, but defensively, they played really well. I mean, top to bottom, and we could talk about defense, and we could also talk about Clay Holmes, because if the Mets plan to give Clay Holmes a playoff start, I have very big concerns about that. And that's where my concerns mostly lied yesterday, was with Clay Holmes and his inability to be consistent. And that's something that we can have a discussion if you want to about it or not. But I think that Clay Holmes, he can't start a playoff game for this team because you're supposed to go out there and continue to just rack up wins, especially coming off of such an electric series against the Phillies, and you go out there and do that against the lineup that's like pesky, I guess, but like look at the names on there. It's ridiculous. So, Clay Holmes on the drop baseball on the PFP to first base, that's brutal. Alonso continues to struggle defensively. I mean, his bat is undeniable right now, especially in the month of August. He had that huge game-tying home run, but then the defensive error kind of just like negates that. And then Brandon Nimmo. I mean, listen, Brandon Nimmo can't do that. I'm sorry. Brandon Nimmo already is a question mark out there in left field due to the arm strength or lack thereof. But you cannot be doing whatever Nimmo did last night. That's just inexcusable. It was a poor fundamental game. It was a poor defensive game. That's not who the New York Mets are. I don't think that's who the New York Mets are. That's who they have been over the past couple of weeks, but that's like a lapse. That's like maybe not even taking the game and your opponent too serious type of thing. Because we just saw them play locked in, clean baseball for 3 games against the Phillies, and they go out there and put up a stinker like that against the Marlins at home. I can't tell you enough that I don't think that's who the Mets are. They got to clean that up. Inferior opponents. This is the Mets' specialty at this point. They play up, right, to better competition, and they play down to worse competition. I don't know why. It's infuriating to watch, but it's not new with this organization. We've seen it time and time again, especially against this very same Marlins organization. I don't know, Rob. I mean, I hope they go out there and play sound defense behind Jonah Tong tonight. I would hope that they're playing hard every day, no matter who the pitcher is, but it seems like they have no issues when a guy like Noah McLean goes out there, right? They're not making really many defensive errors behind him. It's just some of that needs to get cleaned up, and I think they just need to start taking some of these opponents more serious, and that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like yesterday all the big money guys kind of lost focus. And, you saw that with a lot of guys. You saw that with Alonso. You saw that with Nimmo. You seen it even with Juan Soto yesterday, Lindor, all these guys. It just seemed like they weren't – here's the problem. They're not good enough to just show up and act like they're going to win, regardless of who you're playing. They're not good enough. Like, can they win a World Series? Can they go deep in the playoffs? Sure. Like, we've seen a lot of crazy things happen. But you're not good enough at this moment to just walk into Citi Field and think the Marlins are just going to, play nice and say, okay, we don't have our best hitter, so okay, we'll let you win. They're a pesky team, as if people are talking about in the comments right now. They are a pesky team. They don't strike out a lot. They put the ball in play. And we all know what happens when you put the ball in play. You let the defense dictate what happens. They got to make a play. And that is something that I talked about the Mets during their bad stretch. They weren't putting the ball in play enough. They weren't letting the defense play the ball, have possibility of making mistakes. If you strike out and miss, or you don't do if you don't put the ball in play, the defense can't make those mistakes. And you saw the speed of the Marlins and putting the ball in play kind of messed with the Mets yesterday. Their lack of focus and what the Marlins did yesterday, putting the ball in play, all came together yesterday. And yeah, when you talk about Clay Holmes, I'm sick and tired of him. I said it from the jump. A couple of weeks ago, Clay Holmes needed to be in this bullpen, especially with the way Helsley has pitched. Clay Holmes can fit or get put right into that 7th, 8th inning spot, right around Tyler Rogers. Put him in that spot so you have a guy who's done it before. He's not going to be a closer, Clay Holmes, so you don't got to worry about that. He was excellent when the Yankees put him in the 7th, 8th role in front of Weaver last year. That is where he needs to be. You can't keep on throwing him out there, and he throws a dud. And, oh, by the way, I just want to make everybody understand this. Since Monday, every one of the Mets pitchers were on regular days rest. Senga sucked. Minaya sucked. Clay Holmes sucked. You know the only guy who didn't suck? The guy who just came up from AAA in Nolan McLean. That just tell you everything you need to know about what the Mets have done in AAA with these pitchers. They pushed them. They let them go deeper into games, and that's something that the Mets usually don't do. But they did it with Tong. They did it with Nolan McLean. And it looked easy for Nolan McLean when you see Clay Holmes basically struggling to the finish line and Kodai Senga struggling to the finish line. Like, I don't want to hear no more excuses for these guys. There's too much of that. There's still people believing in Kodai Senga. There's still people believing in Sean Manaea. There's still people believing in Clay Holmes, saying that he's had a good season. Yeah, he's had a good season for what he has become from a reliever to a starting pitcher. But we need more. People don't understand that. We can't have this type of pitching going into the playoffs. We just can't. It's not going to work, Chris. And that has been the biggest problem, where people only care about the season when you got to worry about the postseason. When who is your guys you're going to? That is the problem. Now that we kind of have a little bit of an established part of the rotation where I could say, well, I don't want to see Manaea or Senga game 1 and 2. I think we all know who might be game 1 and 2. It's Peterson and McLean. And that's only a week ago that we're saying this. I mean, that's how bad it's been. And I don't believe Senga's going to turn it around. I don't think Manaea is going to turn it around, as I've always had question marks about those two. And Clay Holmes, I think he's been fine for what he became as a starting pitcher. But that's when you have other established starting pitchers at the top of your rotation, where Clay Holmes you play around with him in the 4th and 5th role. But because all the injuries and the lack of performances, we needed Clay Holmes to do more, and he just can't do
it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's going to shake out during the playoffs, Rob. I seriously can't tell you. Like, I don't know to what extent this Mets front office has in their minds that Clay Holmes has to be a starter and nothing but that, because if I'm watching Clay Holmes over the past couple of months, you can already start to see that decline, and everyone's watching it. I mean, it's not just the fans. David Stearns has to be watching this as well, but it just seems like they're trying to stick to this plan, and they're not even thinking about moving him to the bullpen because he has to, quote unquote, has to be this starter. I just don't think that's a good idea. I really don't think that's a good idea. Like, take your wins when you get them. He's put up decent numbers overall, but do you really have faith in him going down the stretch of September when you're trying to catch up to the Phillies? Do you have faith in him starting a game for you instead of coming out of the bullpen in the playoffs? Because I don't. And if he showed me that he's capable of doing that, I wouldn't be saying this right now, right? I don't have anything against Clay Holmes. I think that he can come back next year in 2026 and be a great starting pitcher, taking lessons from what he's learned and making improvements on what he struggled with this season, which is the free passes and the inefficiency and the inability to put away hitters, by the way. That's what he struggles with. And I just think that it needs to be a serious reconsideration from this front office, especially when you have Jonah Tong out there now. Because guess what? You go, like, let's say the Mets don't get into a division lead, and they don't end up in, with a bye, and they have to go and play one of the wild card series. If Jonah Tong does well, and if he's living up to expectations of what we think he's going to produce, I'll tell you this right now. It's going to be Peterson, McLean, and Tong. Those are your pitchers. That's it. Clay Holmes, you're out of there. And Senga, no thanks on Senga at that point. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like people are so quick to say he has to be in this rotation because the Mets have continuously showed that they're going to prioritize him as a starter. That's fine. But I think mid-season adjustments, late season adjustments, given the situation that your team is faced with, is also a huge just realization. It should be a huge realization from the front office. And I don't know. I think they'll make the right move. And at the end of the day, I really do think they'll make the right move because, especially in the wild card, I think Clay Holmes is a net positive for this team. Like, when he goes out there, he will contribute. I just don't trust him going the first 3 or 4 innings in a game. He can come out in long relief if that's the role that they designate for him. I just don't want to see him as a starter. I'm sorry. That's not the right role for him.
Yeah, and I see people like Marcus and Dolo talk about, they promised him a starting role. That's why he signed here. Listen.
That's what I'm saying. I don't care about that. I don't care about that.
And the Mets shouldn't. Winning is a priority. If you're going to worry about feelings now, then you're not going to win. If you're worried about everybody's feelings, then what are we doing here? Right? And David Stearns, as much as I can't stand him, he doesn't care. He hasn't cared about people's feelings, right? He sent Vientos down. He sent Vientos back up. He sent Beatty down. He sent Acuna down. They came back up. He's done it with these guys. He can do it with Clay Holmes. There is nothing saying that Clay Holmes can't be a starter next year. After throwing 140 plus innings, you can throw him in the bullpen and say, hey, listen, Clay, we need you in this bullpen. You see how this bullpen is struggling? We feel like we're confident in you to get the job done. What did Clay Holmes going to say, no, I'm a starter? Then you know what? You sit his ass down and don't pitch him. And you just sit him on the bench and bring somebody else here. You know what? I'd rather Tyler McGill take your place, considering that he looks like a team player. Clay Holmes is not going to say no to that. If he's a team player, which I believe he is, he's going to do what's best for the team. And if the team, and by the way, we need bullpen help, by the way. This is not a situation where the bullpen is doing outstanding and you don't really have a role for Clay Holmes and he's putting the bullpen for mop-up duty. That wouldn't make sense. We're not talking about the situation where the bullpen is pitching outstanding and Clay Holmes goes to the bullpen because you don't need him as a starter right now because you can't trust him, and you're just going to throw him in there for mop-up duty like a Frankie Montas. That's not the case. The case is we actually have need in the bullpen, and Clay Holmes can fill that spot. He was an eighth-inning guy late last year. That is what we are missing right now because of Helsley pitching like crap, Chris.
Let me say this. Clay Holmes is probably trying to pitch for another contract as a starter because he only signed a 3-year deal. I'm assuming he's 32 years old. He's got one more crack at an opportunity for another contract as a starter because we all know that starters are prioritized, especially with the money, over relievers, right? He's already shown the entire league that he is capable of being a starter. The numbers overall that you've seen from Clay Holmes, that can be considered a success. And his rotation spot is not in jeopardy next season. It's not in jeopardy. This is, if they move him to the bullpen, it's not the long-term role for him. Right. Yeah, they did sign him as a starter. But I always felt like you sign a guy like that and tell him he's going to be a starter until he's not. You know what I mean? And this Mets farm system, by the way, we're talking about Jonah Tong, Nolan McLean, maybe even Brandon Sproat at some point here soon in the next couple of days. There's more guys that are coming up through the pipeline that are talented starters. You know what I mean? So Clay Holmes has already built up value for his next contract, given the numbers that he's posted as a starter this season and the amount of innings that he's thrown. And no one's going to take a rotation spot away from him next season. But in order to help the team win, especially given the current personnel, if Jonah Tong comes up and he's mesmerizing just like Nolan McLean has been, yeah, you've got 3 pitchers that give you a better opportunity to win than Clay Holmes does. And I really hope that the Mets front office realize that and make the appropriate move from that point forward. Like, I just want to say that. He's already shown everybody and the Mets organization that he's capable of being a starter. He needs to work on some things, yes. But throwing him in the bullpen for the playoffs or down the stretch of the season is not negating anything that he's already done this season up until this point. That's really all I wanted to say.
Yeah, and you know, I see David saying, "Oh, Robs, you know, all year long you've been nothing but negative. This team has gave you positive feedback all season." I don't think so. I'm sorry. This pitching staff has not been good since late May. All right, this offense finally started to pick up over the last month. There's not a lot of positives to talk about. I'm sick and tired of people talking about, like, the Mets shouldn't be in the position they're in right now. They shouldn't be 5 games out in the division. They shouldn't be only 4 games up in the wild card. We should be talking about October right now and how we're going to set up a rotation for October. You know why we can't do that yet? Because the Mets sucked for 2.5 months, where they were one of the worst teams in baseball record-wise over the last 2.5 months. And now we have to have a conversation about let's get into the playoffs because there's no guarantee of that yet. I know we're 4 games up on the Reds, and the Reds look like they're falling apart. But if we end up just 4 games or less by the time we play the Reds, who do you think is going to have more motivation and more momentum going into that series? The Reds. And we all know the Mets play down to their competition a lot of the times. and you don't think of the Cincinnati Reds as a possible contender. And the way the Mets have played against bad teams is a problem. We just got beat down by the Marlins yesterday, and the Nationals took 2 out of 3 against us. Now, we played well against the Phillies, but I still think that it's the negative part is not something that I'm just doing for the hell of it. They haven't deserved enough credit to be positive all the time. Again, I said this before and I say this again. I'm not speaking for Chris, but I'm speaking for me. If you like me to lie, it's not happening. If you want to hear positivity all the time, find another channel. And you can come off my channel. I said this a lot of times. I am not going to poo-poo this team because they don't deserve a lot of positivity. Now, over the last 3 games against the Philadelphia Phillies, they deserved a ton of credit. And I was very positive over that stretch of games. But they don't deserve, like, am I supposed to just say positive stuff just to make you feel better? Because if that's the case, it's not happening. I'm sorry. I'm just not.
I, for one, have said this for the past week. I don't think the Mets are in any serious jeopardy of not making the playoffs. I think this team will be in the playoffs no matter what. I don't think that the Reds are a serious threat. You can clip this and you can give me receipts. If the Mets end up not making the playoffs this season, I would be shocked. I would come on here and do an apology video, maybe, if that makes everyone feel better. I'm not even going to knock on wood because that's fine. The Mets will make the playoffs this season, whether it's the division or the wild card. I don't know which one, but they will make the playoffs. That's not a question for me. I don't view the Reds as a serious threat to overtake the Mets there. I'm going to go as far as to say that. And as it pertains to Metro saying crickets here, that's our whole point, which is why we're bringing it up. As of right now, as of today, before Jonah Tong starts, Clay Holmes is probably your 3rd starter in a playoff series. Probably, right? Especially given. Actually, you know what? I will rescind that. I'm going to tell you who is. I have a lot more confidence in Sean Manaea, even though he hasn't been as sharp and hasn't been able to go deeper into games. I have a lot more confidence in Sean Manaea than I do Clay Holmes starting a playoff game because he can get swing and miss. Clay Holmes' strikeout rate this season is at just over 18%, which is pretty significantly under league average. You're not putting hitters away at a high clip. So you'll probably have David Peterson, Nolan McLean, and Sean Manaea as your top 3 starters, which makes Clay Holmes the 4th option. Oh, and by the way, Jonah Tong, right? The guy that's supposed to be better than Nolan McLean, if he actually proves and lives up to expectations, that's pushing Clay Holmes to your 5th starter come a playoff rotation. The only guy that I'm more confident with Clay Holmes in, right, or than is Kodai Senga. I'll take Clay Holmes over Kodai Senga at this point. But I think that Kodai Senga has a higher ceiling in terms of the type of outing that he can produce than Clay Holmes does. So what are we talking about here? Yeah, Holmes is 4. And he will be 5 if Jonah Tong actually proves that he can pitch in the spotlight. That's what I'm saying, Metro. So it's basically, but our point was, and I'm not sure what part of our point you're trying to refute here. If you're in a wild card series, you've got 3 pitchers that can start you a game in that series at worst case scenario, because it could end in 2, it could go all 3. If Holmes is number 4, you're not seeing Holmes start a game in the first playoff series. That's just not happening. And even still, teams shorten a rotation for the divisional series even still. So I just don't think that Clay Holmes is an option at this point. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
Not to be like, and again, I will reiterate this. If anybody new joined both of our streams, I will reiterate this. Me saying that Clay Holmes is not a playoff starter for the New York Mets in 2025 doesn't mean he can't be a playoff starter for the New York Mets in 2026.
Right.
I just need to see him take that next step as a starter. This is a successful season for Clay Holmes as a starter overall, the first time doing it since his first year in the league. I completely agree to that. But with what we've seen over the past couple of months and the lack of consistency, the lack of put away pitches, the increase in walks because his walk rate's at over 9%, that's above league average, compiled with the lack of strikeouts, like it's just not giving me confidence this season. That's it. That's my whole point.
And we also have to understand, even if Clay Holmes is still going to be a starter, or even get thrown into the bullpen for the rest of the year, and at least for a wild card series, because he's not pitched. I don't think he's going to be a top 3 pitcher for a wild card series. It doesn't mean that he can't pitch in a game 4 or 5 in a longer series. In a 7-game set. That's a possibility as well. And I just want to make this clear to everybody. Just because we might win, if we happen to win the division, doesn't mean we're still not probably might still play in a wild card. Like, I think people forget that. Like, it's only the first 2 teams in each league that get the bye. So we can win the division and still end up playing the Phillies in a wild card series. It's just at home. Now, with our home road record comparison, where road is not so good and home has been very good, you'll want to play at home, especially the way the Phillies have played at Citi Field. But again, the Phillies and the Dodgers have 77 wins right now, so it's a toss-up. And if it ended up as a tie, I think the Dodgers might have the season series over the Phillies, but that might come into play. Where right now, if it ended today, we're facing the Dodgers in LA. So even if we win a division, we can still play in a wild card. I think people forget that. Again, there's a strong possibility we can be the number 2 seed in the National League. Very big possibility, which I think will be best case scenario, but that's a stretch at this moment. Like, that's a long way away. Because again, I think if you get a bye, this is probably the best possible scenario for the New York Mets, considering the fact that how much we overused our pitchers. Again, they put it up in every day on a game, where there's only a 30 inning difference between starter and bullpen. That's a problem. That is huge. The only teams that use their bullpen more was only 3 other teams, and all of them are very bad. So the Mets are very fortunate they are where they are, because with all the bullpen usage, it is amazing that they're still at this point, and they get credit for that. But they also get a lot of negative feedback from me because they've struggled way too long because of that. And not because on what's today, August 29th, on a Friday, we are still talking about who might pitch in the first couple of games of the playoffs is the problem within itself. And Clay Holmes is part of that problem, along with Manaea, along with Senga. Manaea and Senga are still trying to stretch out their arms. How many games have we talked about? Hey, this is the game where they can go 6 innings. They can stretch out their arms on 95 pitches, and they can't get out of the 4th inning. It's a problem, and we're going to be in September in a couple of days.
This is a problem within itself, and I literally just said, I don't know why, Metro, I appreciate you being here, but I don't know why you keep repeating this, because I literally just told everybody and you, I know that Holmes' overall numbers are good. He's 11-6 with a 3.60 ERA. Yes, that's a good season, but I'm telling you, if you watch Mets games every single day and you watch him pitch every, 4th or 5th, 6th day, whatever it is, if you are actually confident in him starting a playoff game, more power to you. But I would think that's just you trying to feed your own narrative instead of being objective, because I think a lot of Mets fans would have an issue and would be very worried about Clay Holmes starting a playoff game for the New York Mets in the year 2025. And so I agree with you. Those numbers are great, but come on now. We're all watching the same performance. We're all watching the same game. He's not efficient. He lacks a put away pitch, and he has control issues at times. That's not the definition of who you want to see on the mound in the playoffs. That's really it. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you, Rob, is agree or disagree. First of all, I actually have a couple of things I want to ask you, but the first thing is this: agree or disagree. This is my statement. I would rather play the Dodgers in a wild card series than the Padres.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, yeah, of course, because the Padres have our number, just like the Mets have the Phillies number. It feels like that, yes, because I think the Mets, for some reason, no matter the Padres pitching always seems like they can't pitch against anybody else except for the Mets. So yeah, that would concern me. But it's weird because, you know, a lot of people didn't want to play Chicago and the Cubs in 2015 because they basically, you know, mopped us all over the floor during the regular season.
Wiped them in the playoffs.
Correct. So, I mean, weird things have happened. Again, I hate saying I rather face because then it'll bite us in the ass and somebody will clip it and say, oh, you wanted this team. And then, you know, we look like fools. So I'm not, look, who would I rather play? Of course, I'd rather play the team that I feel more comfortable playing because the matchup it just doesn't sit well with me with the Padres. But can the Mets beat anybody? Yeah. So yeah. I don't want to, you know, clip Chris's comment, not mine this time, okay?
You can clip me if you want. You can clip this rant if you want, or this statement if you want. I don't care. I'd rather see the Dodgers than the Padres at this point. And I don't think it's the same thing as last year, as Ricardo is saying. I think this is a completely different year. Last year, the Dodgers were able to get it done, but I just feel like they're a little bit more vulnerable this season for whatever it is. I don't know why it is, but it just feels like they're a lot more vulnerable. And I think the Mets have played the Dodgers really well in the regular season this season, although it could be the same thing where they turn it up in the playoffs. I don't know. I just don't like that matchup with the Padres. I never do. The Padres could stink against every single other team, and then when the Mets come to town, they'll just turn it on, and it's just that simple. So I'd like to not see the Padres. But also, my other thing is that we're getting so hype about Jonah Tong and the expectations. Do you think, like, in the back of my mind, I know Jonah Tong's like really talented, but seeing what Nolan McLean has done in his first 3 starts, it's almost like, can Jonah Tong really top that? You know what I mean? Like, well, like, should we like temper our expectations at this point?
I think unfortunately we have to, because Jonah Tong has been more highly regarded than McLean, at least, you know, compared to what we've seen over the course of the year. It was Jonah Tong. McLean kind of like was talked about a lot more over the last couple of months, but Jonah Tong was the guy that made that massive jump last year that everybody started to talk about him, and he was the guy along with Brandon Sproat. McLean was a part of it, but it seemed like he was the third guy, and McLean just, you know, took over the minors and AAA, and all of a sudden the Mets like felt more confident in him than even Jonah Tong, even though Jonah Tong was still in AA before McLean got up. And then Jonah Tong went to AAA and only pitched two games. I feel like, or 3 games. I feel like it's a very high expectation because what McLean did. But if Jonah Tong has that personality, and he seems like a really nice guy, and like, you know, like he seems like, you know what, I would like that kid to be my son. He feels like a good kid. And it's kind of like, I hope he has that demeanor that McLean has, because everybody talks about, you know, his pitching and, you know, how he blows fastballs by guys, and he seems like he's very dominant on the mound, and that's nice. But can he do it at the major league level, and can that nice guy on the mound or through the media not happen on the mound? Because I feel like he needs that bit of that edge, like you see Nolan McLean have. You know, he's a nice guy, but when he's on the mound, you're not messing with him. And I wonder if Jonah Tong has it. Again, we've seen it in the minor leagues, so it's a good sign, but let's see if he can do it here. And it's unfortunate. I mean, it's not unfortunate because McLean has helped us win, but to have him do what he's done, there's going to be massive expectation. It's going to be a packed house for Mets Marlins tonight compared to yesterday, that it was kind of a underperforming crowd, to be quite honest with you. I mean, that left field side of the stadium from the middle sections up were empty. So it's going to be packed. Everybody wants to see Jonah Tong, right? It was a day game when Nolan McLean pitched against the Mariners, right? It was a weekend. So it was a day game, so it was kind of like weird because people were going to that game anyway. There was no conversations about it until very recently, and we just found out. And then Jonah Tong, because of McLean's success, we all felt Jonah Tong was going to come up at this point, and they kind of said it still during the Phillies series. So it was kind of like everybody was preparing for this. So with the McLean success, I think there's massive expectation because Jonah Tong's supposed to be better. And anything less. Now, again, if he pitches 6 innings of 1-run ball, people are going to be excited. He doesn't have to throw 8 innings like McLean did the other night. I mean, we all love that, but he's more highly regarded than Nolan McLean. He was the top tier pitcher that they drafted that everybody expects to be really good. McLean was a two-way player, right? It was still a decision of where he was going to be. Was he going to be a pitcher or was he going to be a position player? That was only recently.
Well, I will say though, to go against that just a little bit. I mean, Tong was a 7th round pick. I mean, I don't know. He wasn't really on many radars, I would think.
But he jumped
until
quickly.
He was.
He jumped quickly when he got into the farm system, though. That's the interesting part. But Jonah Tong did jump over McLean. Like, Jonah Tong was the talk of the town because of the jump he made last year. So it is going to be interesting. Unfortunately, I'm not going to put that massive pressure on him. I don't feel like it's worth doing at this point. I just wanted to pitch well. Like, give our team a chance to win. Like, pitching better than Clay, Holmes, Minaya, and Senga it's not hard work.
It's not hard. It's not hard.
And that's the sad part is that even if these kids do perform and do what they're expected to do, and McLean has already done that, there's still so much bad vibes with the other guys, except for David Peterson. It's kind of like, God, really? Like, just imagine if one of those 3 guys just pick it up. And now you actually have a rotation you're confident in going into a playoffs. And that's the frustrating thing.
Yeah, I think I agree with Uncuffed Sports Podcast here too in the chat saying that the only pitch that Tong really needs to work on is the slider to make it a really nice arsenal that he has, because that's what makes Nolan McLean great, by the way. He's got 6 pitches that he can throw at you at any given moment. Like, the arsenal is vast. Very, very crazy to say for a guy that was a two-way player, like you just mentioned, Rob. I mean, that's just absolutely insane. You don't see that very much. But Tong, his fastball is probably has the best advanced metrics of any minor league pitcher, no matter what the rankings are in the entire farm system, right? Of any farm system, I guess I should say, over the 30 teams. The curveball and the changeup, I think the changeup is better than the curveball, but even the curveball is still really good. And the one thing that he needs to work on, I'm curious how often he throws it tonight and in his starts moving forward. But that's the one thing to work on for him in the offseason is that slider, so he can have a true 4-pitch arsenal. So, I'm excited, and to get a little bit more into this game, I'm excited to see how this lineup does against Yuri Perez. I think Perez he just came back in the middle of this season. He missed all of 2024 as well. The last time that the Marlins had him was in 2023. Seems to be doing fairly decent in his handful of starts so far this season when he came back. And this lineup, I mean, Viento's back in the cleanup spot, Nimmo batting 5th, Marte DHing at 6th. I think that this could be your best lineup combination at this very given moment, and I hope that I don't jinx them. Whereas before, I would not knock on wood, but now I'm going to knock on wood because I'm like, all right, this is your best lineup combination. Go out there and score some damn runs for Jonah Tong. Let's go ahead and do it. I don't want to see Jonah Tong pitching a gem into the 6th inning and he's got no run support. Like, that, nobody wants to see that. So I like this lineup a lot. I think that this could be the best lineup combination. I know Mark Vientos at third base is kind of a wild card, but I'm not talking about defensively here. I'm talking about offensively. This lineup in general, as of recent, has been putting up runs. They've been putting up runs in bunches. I know they only scored 4 yesterday, but if we're really complaining about 4 runs being scored from a lineup, that's probably the least of our problems from a team perspective. So I like the lineup a lot. Yeah,
the Mets seem like they don't win games if they score 4 runs or less because of the pitching.
That's the problem too. They don't win close ball games like that.
Correct. I mean, when you've been scoring almost a month of almost over 7 runs per game over the month, and you're losing more games, it's a problem. Like, you can't win games that you score 4 or less. Like, it's like the Mets have a rule: hey, if we score 4 runs or less, we're not winning a ball game. Like, that should not be the case. You should be able to win 2-1 ball games, 3-2 ball games. The Mets seem to be, allergic to that. Unfortunately, they were great at it the first month and a half of the season, but they haven't been since, and that has been a problem. Like, if the Mets don't score 5 runs, we feel like we're in trouble, and that shouldn't happen, especially against a Marlins team that's not a big run scoring team. And you give them extra outs, you're gonna have problems. I don't care who you play, bad or good teams. You make mistakes, they're gonna capitalize. They are a major league team, even though they're very young. So I don't know, man. It's when it comes to the lineup, I'm fine with the lineup offensively. I don't like Vientos playing third base, and I don't like Brett Baty playing second base. Brett Baty has a hard time turning double plays. He's slow turning double plays. I just feel like he's too tall and too lanky to play that position. I'd rather see McNeil in second base and DH Vientos. I know that takes Marte out of the lineup, and right now with Marte playing very well, it sucks to take him out of the lineup, but somebody's going to have to sit. And I'd rather just not play Marte with Vientos, being red hot with the bat. I'd rather just have the best defensive possibility fielding out there, especially with Jonah Tong in his first career start. I want the best defense out there. Vientos still scares me at third base. Now, he makes a couple of good plays, but I still feel like his footwork is not very good at third base, and I think that's a problem. Along with Brett Baty, I think Brett Baty has shown that he could play a serviceable second base, but this too many times over. Just look at the last week of games. How many times the Mets didn't turn double plays when Baty was playing second base? It's a problem, and you can't give extra outs to any team, especially good teams, and think you're going to get away with it. That hurts your pitcher overall on the mound, and I know you can put these bats in a lineup and put them in different defensive spots. I think that's okay. And again, if you got to sit Marte, you sit Marte. I don't think we're going to cry over Marte not being in the lineup when Vientos is hitting. Because the whole point of Marte in this lineup was because Vientos was not hitting. And that's where Marte came into play. And now that Vientos is hitting, there's no need for him to play third base. You got to put your best defensive guys out there. Like, you're putting Taylor over Mullins because of defense, not because of offense. Even though Taylor has been better at the moment offensively, we know why Taylor's in the lineup. He's in the lineup because of his defense, not because of his bat. And that is where I think Mendoza better be right about this, because just because Vientos is hitting doesn't mean you need to play him at third base and make him botch a ball and have bad footwork at third base. It's a dangerous game to play, because you better not make innings continue because of defensive mistakes by those two guys, because I don't feel like they should be in those positions, unfortunately.
Tyrone Taylor, over the last 30 days in his 28 at-bats, he's hitting 321. I mean, I think the guy is turning it up at the right time, and I think he turned it up at the right time last season too, around this time. Tyrone Taylor had his best month in 2024 in the month of September, and he really earned that starting position over Harrison Bader in that stretch, and I hope that can continue in this season, and I think that would just make Mendoza's decision easier between Taylor and Mullins. Because if you're asking me, like, Mullins, you're talking about arm strength in the outfield. That's a big thing, man. That's a big thing, right? I wouldn't even be mad if we saw Starling Marte in left field to end this season on a more regular basis. That's how much I prioritize that kind of defense over what Nimmo and Mullins together give you with the lack of arm strength. So that's an important thing, because guess what? The Phillies were more so a little bit, I guess, less aggressive on the base paths in terms of taking the extra base. I think there's a handful of times that the Phillies could have taken, a run, and the third base coach stopped the runner, thankfully, to give the pitcher an extra opportunity to get the out and strand them. But other teams may not fall into that same category. And if you have Nimmo and Mullins out there, guess what? Those guys are scoring all day long. So, yeah, I don't know about Vientos at third base. I think Brett Baty does play, though. You said it. Like, he plays a serviceable second base. Like, he handled a couple of hot shots yesterday and I believe in the Phillies series at second base, and that inspires confidence. But yeah, I mean, his double play turning could be a little bit better in terms of the technique. But I think you just got to put up as much as many runs as possible at this point. And that was probably the decision to play McNeil recently in center field as well. It's tough. It's tough. Do you prioritize defense, or do you prioritize the offense, or do you go with a blend of the two? And I think that right now with the pitching, especially when you don't have a guy like McClain on the bump, like you have Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, Clay Holmes, you want to put up the most runs as possible. And I think that definitely plays a part in Carlos Mendoza's decision on an everyday basis right now.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, with Jonah Tong's first start, I think you need to prioritize defense a little bit. But again, it's not like the guys are coming out of the lineup. You're taking Marte out of the lineup by moving Vientos to DH and Beatty the third and McNeil at second. So you're not, hurting the lineup. With Taylor, it's the 8 spot. Mullins and Taylor are batting in the same spot, basically. So the defense, I think, is more important at this moment. But you're right about the whole Marte situation with left field. In big games later in the season or in the playoffs, I want Marte in left field later in games, defensive replacement, and I want Taylor in center field. If Mullins and Nimmo are going to play, and I truly believe game 1 of a postseason, I would not be shocked if Mullins and Nimmo will be in the lineup, but Mullins would be in the lineup starting the game.
The only reason why I agree with that, Rob. I don't know if I agree with that.
The only reason why I say that, I feel like because you acquired him at the trade deadline, I think it's going to be – I'm not going to say it's going to be whole series. I think if Mullins looks bad, they're going to change it right away. But I do feel like Mullins is going to start in center field to open a playoff series. I don't know why I feel that way. I don't agree with it, but I feel that way for some reason. Now, again, Mullins might surprise us. I still think he's a solid ball player, and he's going to help this team. How? I'm not sure yet. But I think because of the pop in his bat over Tyrone Taylor's lack of power, I think they're going to prioritize that over a little bit of lesser defense in center field, at least for game 1, in my opinion. I feel like I think they like the possibility of Mullins hitting the ball over the wall in the bottom of the order. That's the only thing I can think of. I don't agree with it, but I feel that way.
Clip this if you want to clip it. Tyrone Taylor will be starting game 1 in a playoff series for the Mets.
I hope you're right. I think
he will be. I think you
got to prioritize defense in the postseason. I know you got to score runs, but when Tyrone Taylor or Mullins is batting 8th or 9th in the lineup, I'm not concerning myself about their offensive talent, even though I think the Mets are going to prioritize that a little bit, because at the end of the day, Tyrone Taylor can come in the 5th inning for defensive replacement if the Mets are winning the game in the playoffs. So I think they always have that option to take guys out early for defensive purposes if the Mets have a lead. So I hope you're right, because I want Taylor in there. I'm prioritizing defense. Like, Vientos should not be playing third base in the postseason. It should be Beatty. He's been the better third baseman. McNeil has been the better second baseman overall, even though Beatty has been better. McNeil needs to be the second baseman, and Taylor needs to be the center fielder in game 1 of a postseason. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but we see what defense, and Met fans should know firsthand what defense can do in the postseason. You can't make those mistakes in the postseason because they will bite you in the ass. They've done it they bit us in the ass this season. We saw what happened with bad defensive plays yesterday. They lose you games very easily. Then your offense probably will lose games, because there's not going to be a lot of high-scoring games, in my opinion, in this postseason. I feel like there's a lot of offensive. If you just look at the offenses around baseball that are possible playoff teams, it's not like amazing where you can say one lineup is like, wow, they can score 100 runs in this game. We know playoff games can be a little bit low scoring. I think last year was kind of an anomaly just based on, I don't know what, it just feels like, I feel like it's going to be a lot of low scoring games in the postseason. And we've known the Mets haven't played well in low scoring games for the last couple of months. So I need to prioritize defense in the playoffs, especially if you're going to go with, the 3 pitches we've been talking about in McClain, Peterson, and Tong. If Tong pitches well, I think you got to prioritize different defense, because they're not going to give up a lot of runs, in my opinion. And that's where you got to prioritize defense, in my opinion, with that stuff.
Yeah, and the one problem about, it's the best defensive lineup is what Uncuffed is saying 100%, but Nimmo's not, like, you're not going to not play Nimmo. Right. I don't think they're going to DH Nimmo if Mullins is playing left field, because then you're taking hypothetically Vientos' bat out, or you would have to play Vientos at third base, which I don't think many of us want to see to begin with. So there's a plethora of combinations that the Mets can deploy, but there are certain scenarios where you know that one lineup is prioritizing defense and one lineup is prioritizing offense. And going back to it, I think Mullins was a move just to make a move for center field, right?
I said that.
And it was a move to maybe light a fire under Tyrone Taylor to get it going. Like, I really do believe that, because Tyrone Taylor was not doing anything until the Mets acquired another center fielder. And now Tyrone Taylor, just like last season, is hitting the baseball. And if Tyrone Taylor's hitting the baseball at the clip that he's hitting the baseball at right now, which is really good, and he's starting to heat up on this platoon basis, that's the one part of his game where, okay, they're deciding on putting him in the lineup because of his offense. If he's hitting, there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be in the lineup. That's not even a question. So I think Tyrone Taylor is going to get the start in the playoffs, game 1. I think they're going to prioritize him. Unless he has just an absolute shitty month of September and just completely loses it, I really would find it hard to imagine they play Mullins, who only has 1 home run. I mean, he had 15 with the Orioles in the first half of the season. He's hitting .232 as a Met with 1 home run. I mean, he's had a couple of games where he's looked good, but like, it just hasn't been there all in all. So I would take Tyrone Taylor over Mullins.
Yeah, I really wish the reason why Stearns got Mullins was to light a fire under Tyrone Taylor, but I truly believe it was just to shut up Met fans, because David Stearns knew that if the Mets only did bullpen moves at the deadline and not get a center fielder, not get a starting pitcher, it would have been freaking, pitchforks at Citi Field. People were pissed. We're not exactly happy with the ending of that trade deadline. I don't care what people say. People were excited about the bullpen additions, and we were, but we all felt like it wasn't enough. And I think the Mullins move, why, and because it was only a few hours before the deadline, was the case of they knew Stearns was not going to give up what he was going to give up for Luis Robert. Again, we can agree to disagree on that situation, but it was only to shut up the fans. I truly believe it wasn't the light of fire under Tyrone Taylor. If that was the cause or the effect of getting Mullins just because of circumstance, great, it worked. But I don't think that was a plan by David Stearns, because if you want to light a fire under Tyrone Taylor's ass, Luis Robert was the guy to get, not Cedric Mullins, because Luis Robert has a better potential of being an everyday starter, a guy that we know that has a really high ceiling if he gets it together. Cedric Mullins is what he is. He's been like this for a couple of years now. He's not the same player. I don't think Tyrone Taylor's walking in and see Cedric Mullins and be like, I know I'm better than you. Like, I feel like he knows he's better defensively. He has a better arm. Now, Mullins has more pop, but the speed is the same, basically, I feel like, with Tyrone Taylor. So I don't think that's I really think I hope David Stearns sat down and says, you know what, I need to light a fire on Tyrone Taylor's ass. So I need to get a center fielder, even if it's not the best one available. I got to get somebody in here. I wish that was the case, man. I really wish. I think
it is. I think it is. Tyrone Taylor is Stearns' guy, Rob. Let's not forget that.
I agree with that, but I just don't feel like Stearns, I think we're giving Stearns too much credit, man. I swear, I really do. I want to give him credit for that. I really do. But even if it wasn't the plan to light a fire on Tyrone Taylor's ass, it's working. Even if that wasn't the plan. So who cares at that point? But I find it hard. I just think he wanted to shut up Met fans, because he was the only president of baseball ops or GM come on TV 30 minutes after the trade deadline. No other GM or president of baseball ops who was running the team jumped on TV faster than that. I felt like he was trying to save face doing that so quickly. It was just a weird situation, in my opinion. And I do feel like he knew he underwhelmed at the trade deadline. He never admitted it, but I feel like that's why he did it, to shut up the fans, to be honest with you.
That could be it too, but I mean, I'll just take the side of him lighting a fire under Tyrone Taylor. I think that's a better storyline anyways. And I agree with 1818 that Tyrone Taylor really shouldn't be an everyday player. But you've got 2 players that are not supposed to be everyday players in Tyrone Taylor and Mullins. And you
Yep.
have to, there's only one spot to give with those guys, especially with Brandon Nimmo occupying left field and Juan Soto occupying right field, right? And prioritizing offense, because let's just hope that Brandon Nimmo is able to keep any sort of momentum with the bat. We're not really like excited to see him play in left field, but I think your best offensive lineup has Nimmo in left field, and having another big bat, whether it's Marte or Vientos at DH. I just think that you have to decide on any given day for Carlos Mendoza between Taylor and Mullins. We saw one time in Atlanta. I believe it was only one time, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, it could have been a second time, but the one time that Mullins and Taylor were in the starting lineup together, you're not going to see that all too often, because this Mets team is going to prioritize offense when the playoffs rolls around or late September rolls around, and your best offensive lineup is not deploying Mullins and Taylor in the same lineup together. That's just not the case.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. Again, Mendoza has a lot of work to do when it comes to that. I see, who was it? Boogie Woogie's talking about the status of Winker and Siri. I think Winker is back in the minors. Yeah, he's in Port St. Lucie right now. 2 days ago, cleared to begin rehab start. So, that's a conversation.
So is Siri. So is Siri.
So is Siri. So, that's another conversation to have, right? You kind of have a center fielder in Mullins or Tyrone Taylor, let's say both of them. We have to understand that there's not a lot of roster spots available here for Winker and Siri, and I think we can all agree here. Now, again, you ain't gonna DFA guys now, but you might see some guys currently on this roster that might not make the playoff roster because of certain matchups. Like Jesse Winker, if he shows that he's healthy, is probably going to be part of this playoff roster. Same thing goes for Jose Siri. Like, it's going to be very interesting because somebody's going to get let off the roster here when it comes to the playoff roster. So, I mean, we got to get there first. But we saw what Winker did in the postseason last year. We saw the energy he brings to this team. I think that's important. I truly think that's important, Chris, talking about Siri and Winker, because there's not a lot of roster spots available here. So if the Mets make the playoffs, and we assume they will, so let's just go on the basis of they will, somebody's getting left off the playoff roster. But I think it's going to be based on matchups. Like, how many lefties do that team that the Mets play have in the bullpen? So it might be Siri over Winker. But we saw what Winker did last year in the postseason and the energy he brought. I think that's a big deal. I don't think Winker is back here because of what he did last year, numbers wise, because he wasn't really that good during the regular season. He was good in the playoffs, but his numbers didn't dictate the Mets definitely bringing him back. I think it was his energy and what he brings to the table with this clubhouse. I think that's a big deal. And yeah, he can hit the ball over the wall. But I think his energy and his badass attitude, which I still believe this team needs, to be honest with you. I still think they're a little bit fragile, in my opinion. I do feel like that. And I think Winker brings that a little bit of that badass, don't fuck with me mentality. And I think the Mets need that because they had that last year. And Winker brings that back. So, what are your thoughts? If there had to be a decision on Jose Siri or Jesse Winker making a postseason roster, let's assume they come back in about a week or two. And they play, and they both play well. Let's say they both play well, because you're not going to play somebody who put somebody on the roster if they're not playing well. Let's say they're both playing well. They're both doing what they're supposed to be doing today. Chris, Winker or Siri on the postseason roster?
I think you could utilize Siri a little bit more, like in terms of situational stuff at the end of a game. I think they would prioritize Winker, though, for the reasons that you mentioned, and also the spark that he could provide as a pinch hitter off the bench. Do I have confidence in either of them coming back from this rehab assignment and being impactful for this team? Not so much. Not so much. I like Jesse Winker as a guy for this clubhouse, man. I really do. I'm not going to discredit that from him. I also think, like Ricardo is saying, that Mauricio is going to be sent down at any point here, because he's not serving any purpose for this team right now. I don't know. I think that for a bench spot, one of them will get it. I think they'll leave Siri off the playoff roster if it came down to it. That's what
Yeah.
I'll say.
I agree with that. So Easy just said, I guess we haven't seen that news. Walker Buehler got waived. That's interesting right before September because somebody can pick him up quickly. He can be on that postseason roster. And we all know what he did last year in the postseason with the Dodgers. That might be a situation where that would be the best move David Stearns made all season. To be quite honest with you, book it, sign it. How much you need? I got like $5 in cash right now in my pocket. I think we can get him. I think we can get him. Look, like and it's amazing that he got waived because again, if the team, I think a team has to probably do a trade with the Red Sox because he's waived unless he completely gets to every team or something like that. I don't know how it works anymore because there ain't no waiver wire deals or anything like that. But I don't know if you have any more information, Chris, about how that works. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'm honestly not too sure at this point either at that. I mean,
I would do it. I swear to God, I think he'd be better than Holmes, Senga.
I wanted him in the offseason. I mean, he hasn't really had a good season so far, but I think that if he was, brought on hypothetically, to a bullpen role like he was serving for the Dodgers last season in the postseason, like, yeah, you would probably take a shot on that. But ironically enough, as bad as Walker Buehler has been for the Red Sox this season, he's still better than Montas any given day of the week. That was such a miss by David Stearns, the whole Montas thing, and I just can't believe it. So, yeah, I don't know, man. The Walker Buehler thing is interesting. I don't have confidence the Mets will do that. I think they're going to roll with the pitchers they have right now, maybe pending a Brandon Sproat call-up, but he's not going to. Buehler's not coming here, would not come here to start any sort of game. He'd be here for the bullpen, and that's really it.
Are you sure about that? Because I could play Holmes right in the bullpen tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I just
going to do that.
I don't know. I don't think it happens. I don't think it happens.
You know what? Walker Buehler didn't have, I know he was injured and he came back kind of late for the Dodgers, but he wasn't very good in the season when he came back for the Dodgers during the season. But how good was he in the postseason? And I think that within itself should get David Stearns itchy and picking up that phone right now and find out on the way to get Walker Buehler here. And I don't care. Promise him the moon. I don't care. Whatever you got to promise him. He's like, hey, if you're going to take me on, I want to start. Great. Clay Holmes, you're in the bullpen. Do it tomorrow. Like, we just talked about not promising somebody anything. But Walker Buehler, I guarantee you, we can pulse Mets fans right now. 90% of them would have confidence for Walker Buehler in with this team over Manaea, Holmes, and Senga in a heartbeat. I truly believe that.
I don't know about Manaea. I wouldn't go as far as to say Manaea. I don't know if I would say Manaea.
I don't know.
For me personally, I think Manaea's taking. I honestly think Manaea's taking the proper strides that he has to. The put away stuff is there. It just seems like he's hitting a wall in that fifth inning, especially the last go around for him where he went 4 2/3. I don't know if I would say Clay Holmes is a maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I just haven't seen too much of Walker Buehler this season to begin with, anyways. So I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like worst case scenario, you just don't put him on the roster. Like it's not the end of you don't put him on the postseason roster if he doesn't perform well. But I think that's a guy that those guys always seem to come through in the biggest moments. He did it prior to that. He did it when he came back last year. I just feel like those guys are hard to come by. And we talk about Stanek might being the guy that might be left off the roster, but he's the guy with a ton of postseason experience. I know that might not mean nothing at the moment, but I think postseason experience matters, especially with pitching, not just with position players. I feel like with pitching, it always seems to come up where the guys that have a lot of experience seem to do the job better than guys that have no experience, because it is a question mark with a lot of these guys that we have. We can talk about Nolan McClain all we want. We can talk about Jonah Tong all we want. We have no idea what they're going to do in the playoffs. I know you say that about anybody, but there's a lot of question marks with some of these guys, and that you always concern yourself about that. I always like to have the veteran presence in there that has postseason experience. Again, is Stearns going to do it? I mean, probably not, because he's afraid to make any type of, interesting move that will kind of make people uncomfortable. So I don't know. But Chris, Jonah Tong on the mound tonight. We are doing post game today, right? I'm not sleeping tonight before work. It's gonna be a long night, but I don't care. Again, we're almost past the dog days of summer. We're getting to September. This is crunch time. And you know what? You got to sacrifice a little sleep for some crunch time, Chris. So Jonah Tong tonight. What I put it in the poll. How many innings tonight for Jonah Tong? I don't know what it says. People can tell me in the comments, but what do you think tonight?
I think he goes 6. I think he'll go 6.
I do too.
I think he'll go 6.
I think 6 innings, 3 runs. I don't know why he puts up.
If he goes 5 though, and if he puts up like 5 with 1 earned run, and let's say he's a little bit inefficient, right? I'll still take that. I don't care. That's like a first start for a debut. That's something you can build off of. That's really the case. But I just hope he does well, man. There's a lot of hype surrounding this start. There's a lot of anticipation surrounding this start. And as I mentioned before earlier in this stream, it's hard to follow up a performance like Nolan McLean. It's really hard to do and follow up what Nolan McLean's been doing. So I hope that Jonah Tong is up to the task. The pitches, the primary pitches that he has are said to be sharper than Nolan McLean's, but he doesn't have as much in his arsenal to keep hitters guessing as much. So I'm very curious. I just hope we get a damn win against this Marlins team. This Marlins team pisses me off. I'm sorry. I really have nothing against them other than the fact that they choose to play competent baseball when they play the Mets. And that just pisses me off within itself. So go out there, even up this series. Jonah Tong, I'm not asking for the world from you. We've been getting the world from Nolan McLean, but I'm not even asking that from you. 5-6 innings, keep your team in the game. Offense, hopefully they show up against Yuri Perez, and then let's get it done. That's it.
Yep, that's what we're hoping for. Again, there's so much pressure on this kid because of what Nolan McLean did, and it's even more now considering the fact that, again, it's gonna be crazy tonight. I know people are already gonna be pissed off because of the U.S. Open and the traffic and all that stuff. It's not easy to get to Citi Field right now or get out of Citi Field. I know that might not, people might not think that's a problem, but Jonah Tong gets hit around a little bit. There were some boo birds last night, and the Mets just came off a really good – I'm not saying Jonah Tong is getting booed, but there was boo birds last night with the Mets, not playing well after the Phillies series with all that momentum and hype. So, for at the very least, I want Jonah Tong to have a competent start. If you got to go 5 innings, give me 2 runs, I'll take that. Because, Nolan McLean, what 5 1/3 his first time out, if I'm not mistaken, 5 2/3. So we'll take that. But look like you have control somewhat over a game. I don't want to see you get knocked around because, again, we're going to still be talking about, oh, my God, if Jonah Tong doesn't pitch well, who the hell's pitching in his postseason games? We're going to have that conversation again. So we are doing a post game tonight, guys. Mets Marlins Game 2, Jonah Tong's MLB debut, the long-awaited MLB debut. Everybody's excited about that. Can he match Nolan McLean? It's a big ask, but this team, I'm not going to say needs it, but we need it. Let's be honest about that. We need that. So, Chris, any final words before we call it a pregame? And hopefully we get this win tonight talking on the post game.
Go win. See you all in the post game. That's all I got, man. That's all that needs to be said.
There we go, guys. So thank you for tuning in to the Amazing Mets pregame show right here on the channels. And guess what, guys? Both of us on the post game. It's been a while since both of us have been on the post game together. Again, schedules suck, but that's life. We'll see you later tonight, hopefully talking about a Mets win and a dominant performance by Jonah Tong. Let's go, Mets, guys, and enjoy the game.
Let's go, Mets.
Seven train rumble, headed to the field. Orange and blue vibes, the energy revealed. Brooklyn to Queens, repping both hoods. Rob and CP, keep it fire misunderstood. Hear 'em all loud.